I give you now, ladies and gentlemen, leading onto the stage, his four brethren, Mr. Kevin Parry.
This evening's debate is, of course, on the subject of globalisation. Few topics are probably as discussed as often as this. Views are pontificated, everybody's got a view on what it means. But tonight we have some experts.
Now, globalization, as we all understand it, was supposed to lead and to breed, indeed, peaceful, sustainable, prosperous, integrated international society. Now, in the past few years, it hasn't exactly worked out that way.
There have been numerous episodes of globalization, of increased integration in the past, where more goods move, more people move, money moves across national frontiers, but all of them have collapsed.
Well, globalization, in my view, is somewhat lopsided. It's basically a market fundamentalist project which favors a capital which can move around freely and escape regulation and taxation. The trouble is more on the political side, and one could add to it the environmental side. I'm a late convert to global warming exactly because I'm so late and because there are such long lead times. And long before we fry, we are going to destroy ourselves by wars.
Globalization has had very significant social, political impact. For example, in Germany, in the US, in France, it is a political hot potato. Do we underestimate its impact there or not?
Europe is, if you include services, also a world champion with regard to exports. And so what can better be done for us than have open markets everywhere? And this is, of course, the good side of globalization.
Churchill once famously said that you can always rely on the Americans to do the right thing once they've exhausted all other possibilities.
Only the United States itself was powerful enough to destroy its position. And by declaring war on terror, that's exactly what we did. We went out of our way, actually, to do the same thing, with disastrous consequences, particularly in Iraq. Now, fortunately, we are a democracy, and eventually, the American people have spoken, and they have pretty conclusively repudiated the invasion of Iraq.
Globalization is actually very vulnerable, and one of the things that it's vulnerable to is terrorism.
How do you overcome one of the inherent paradoxes in the European Union, which is that it traditionally has existed and acted as a force for democracy, but itself is not particularly democratic, or as democratic as it could be?
Well, I think that actually it's very important that Europe should remain theoretically open to new members, because it has really worked extremely well and has really benefited Europe.
That there's a danger that when you try to make the European project more popular and you go beyond the elite and you try to work out some kind of popular basis for support, there's a danger that you repeat what was done in the 19th century with national integration. That is, that Italy was built not because there was a sense of being Italian, but because it was anti-Austrian. Or Germany was built in large part not because Saxons and Bavarians and Prussians had that much in common, but because it was anti-French.
My question is a very simple one. Are private equity funds symptomatic of globalization, and does globalization mean that the locusts will inherit the earth?
If you look now in the United States, for example, there is also a discussion on certain hedge funds, because private people have put all their money into a pension fund, and the pension fund has put all its money into a hedge fund, and the money is lost, and so people care about the future. So what I would intend to do is to look for something, not necessarily regulation. I'm not a very good friend of regulation, but I'm a friend of transparency. So why don't we look for some kind of better transparency?
It would be remiss of me sitting next to one of the most successful hedge fund managers in history not to ask, will hedge funds inherit the earth? Mr. Soros?
Well, they did. And as a result, hedge funds find it very difficult to outperform the market because they are the market.
Yeah. Very good answer.
So, of course, they can get maybe superior results by using leverage, which then may justify the 20% or so performance fee.
We've been critical of the Bush administration tonight, but for all its faults, it has taken a serious interest in the fate of these countries, more perhaps than the EU has done. So my question is, what can the EU do? What should the EU do to make sure that these swing countries swing the right way?
This is massively unpopular with the populations of the existing EU countries, and there's more and more of a sentiment that the EU shouldn't be enlarged. If that's the case, it seems to me that the EU is really going to tip these countries into what is called the Trashkanistan of history.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for your time, to thank our participants this evening, Professor Harold James, George Soros, and Dr. Bernd Pfaffenbach. Thank you very much for your thoughts.